How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, to talk more about the Super Bowl, but I did bring on a guest as well, my good friend Dom Matassa, who is the host of the Sloppy Saturdays podcast, college football podcast, to get his thoughts on the game. Obviously, Dommy, how are we doing today?
Doing good. I'm ready to talk about the Super Bowl. We had this episode planned for a minute that we were going to do a little Super Bowl thing, and it's a little exciting because usually we're together watching the games. This we weren't, so I kind of get to hear what you thought about it. Talk about it a little bit before we started recording, but I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, so obviously talked a little bit about it yesterday. Like I said, want to get some other perspectives on the game. Obviously, from a pure entertainment standpoint, wasn't the greatest Super Bowl. Definitely going to be one of those that a lot of people just want to forget. But there was a lot of overreactions to it, and some people, some of our friends, even saying like, "How did these teams even make it this far? Like, this is a terrible game." Um, Clearly, like, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, Look, it's one of those
Not
games.
somebody's opinion to really value that heavily, but
Yeah, but at the same time, like, if you haven't been watching the playoffs and you haven't been watching this NFL season, like, it's not really surprising with how the game went down, and it's not surprising that there was a lack of scoring. Because it was, we've seen Super Bowls in the past be, defensive battles, and that's kind of what this game was for most of the game. And, we didn't see the first touchdown until the fourth quarter. So, and obviously, we didn't have two all time greats at quarterback, okay? And these two quarterbacks had very good seasons. One of them finished as the runner up for MVP, and the other, they put themselves in their own category, in their own right, and the journey that they went on. But I'm not really surprised by the outcome. I did predict the score that was a little bit closer, but you could tell early on in the game that it was going to be a struggle more so for the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots defense did the best they could to keep them in the game, but it just came down to, like I said yesterday, on the recap, that the game was lost, won and lost in the trenches. The Patriots' offensive line and their inability to protect their young quarterback, and it resulted in turnovers, which is something that plagued Drake May throughout these playoffs. Obviously, won 3 games to get to this point. It's just, in the big game, those turnovers came back to bite him, and the Seahawks capitalized, obviously, the pick six, and, obviously Sam Darnold throwing the touchdown pass to A.J. Barner as well. Um, it just came back to bite him, and Sam Darnold played a perfect postseason. Didn't turn the ball over at all, which is very impressive. And, the Seahawks won on their running game, not making mistakes, and their defense, really. I mean, the defense was the performance of the game. The number one reason they won the game was because of their defense, what I was trying to say. And then obviously Kenneth Walker running the football effectively, winning Super Bowl MVP. So, and that's what resulted in 29-13. So, yeah, that's kind of a little bit of what I discussed yesterday. But Dami, what were your thoughts on this game between these two teams and how it unfolded?
Yeah, so the one thing I do wanted to talk about first was again, like what you said with narratives. When you look at people saying like whatever was the worst Super Bowl, these two teams didn't deserve to be there. One, I think both teams like 100% deserve to be there. I think they had two of the best defensive units in the league. It was a year that was wide open. It was a year that wasn't like primarily dominated by quarterbacks where you thought this quarterback was guaranteed to go into the Super Bowl. Again, it was a little more wide open. And the one thing we were talking about before we hopped on was that like a lot of people throughout the year were talking about how much they love it's wide open and how much that again any team could win and how exciting it was this year that there wasn't like 2 3 primary Super Bowl contenders. Like it was really wide open to 6 to 8 teams this year in the playoffs for sure that had really great chances. But I felt like when the Super Bowl was coming up and there wasn't like an all-time great in his prime in the Super Bowl at the quarterback position, it felt like it kind of lost hype. Now I don't know if that's because of like the general public, casuals, because when like a Tom Brady or a Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, like even the people who don't primarily watch football, they could be attracted to it because not only are those players polarizing with their storylines, just their name alone being household names, a lot of people know them. Now you had Darnold and Drake May in the Super Bowl, who again like aren't all-time greats, especially not at this point. I mean, who knows what happens with Drake May's career? Darnold, we saw a little more of a sample size. Obviously, he's a little bit further along his career, but again, this was the most excited I have been for a matchup, just because I'm fans of multiple players on both sides, which doesn't usually happen in the Super Bowl. But I really like this matchup again. A wide open season. I thought both teams, like I said, definitely deserve to be there. Again, a lot of people talk about the Patriots with luck of their schedule, whatever. The one thing I do have to say to dispute that, when you're 17-4 throughout the season, again, I think it's like a little less on luck and a little more like maybe this team was actually like pretty good if they're 17-4 throughout the
I
whole
would agree
season.
with that.
Um, Again, I think the only thing we talked about it that you could really point to as lucky really for them, especially in this playoff run, was just like the Bo Nix injury in a sense. Like Denver might have been the better team than them. We believe that that definitely could have been the case. Again, Denver has a little bit better offensive line. Even their defense might have been a little better. They match up with Bo Nix in that last AFC Championship game. Maybe think the matchup is different. But every single team in the AFC in the playoffs, they pretty much beaten. Like for people saying like the Bills should have been there, they beat the Bills at Buffalo. The Chargers, they were saying, again, had a complete offensive line, but that was a 7 seed. They were the 2 seed. Like, they were kind of supposed to lay over them. Houston people thought was a contender. They beat them. Again, like, every team pretty much they beat. You said they beat the Ravens, too. Like, every team they pretty much beat in the AFC. So, like, again, they were at the top of the AFC the whole year. They deserve to be there. Now, for me, I think they kind of just met their maker. Like, this team definitely overachieved throughout the year, and they had a good unit defensively. But I think they just didn't have enough to get past the Seattle team. The Seattle team, again, throughout the playoffs showed that they were able to win a multitude of ways because, again, we saw the game before the NFC Championship where this Sam Darnold-led offense, Sam Darnold had the best game of his career, possibly. I think definitely his best game. One of the best games I've ever seen. Yep. But again, like narratives aren't really built up and like brought down as much when it comes to like Sam Darnold, Drake May, as it is if like again a Mahomes would have done it or Josh Allen would have done it. So Sam Darnold carried them to this game when it comes to the NFC Championship. The defense didn't play well. Then in this game, you kind of see the reverse. Sam Darnold kind of doing what he has to, and the defense really stepping up. I mean, this game was pretty much over when you look at, again, towards the second quarter. I was hopeful that the Patriots could make halftime adjustments. But again, the Patriots, like I said, they got to this point, but they didn't have enough to get past this team. When you look at the offense, again, Drake May didn't play his best game. For him to win this game, he'd have to play an absolutely perfect, flawless game. But even to that point, I don't know if it just would have been enough because they don't have the players on this offense to consistently win out. I mean, they have two solid running backs. Trayvon Henderson, we think, is going to be better in the future. Not really that guy yet. Ramondre Stevenson, I think he rushed for like 2.8 yards to carry this game. And then I think he rushed for like 3-something in the other game. So they cannot run the football at all. When we look at the offensive line for New England, it was an absolute disgrace. When we saw 4-man rushes consistently getting home and a defense with the depth of Seattle's defense, the ability to get pressure with 4 men and drop back 7, I mean, that's when you should have known the game was pretty much over. And to have that ability to dominate in the trenches, like, again, you could dominate in the trenches and still, like, lose a game if, like, again, a crazy play happens or 7, it's pretty much over. And then, again, like, the receivers, their receiving core, Booty had a good year. Pop Douglas was able to get some smart plays throughout the year. Stephon Diggs had a pretty solid year for where he's at in his career, but they don't have a true number one threat. So, again, to play this defense like Seattle, that's going to, like I heard you say this before, they're going to not only capitalize on turnovers, but they're also going to score. Where, again, you had other teams that you held, whether it was like a Chargers with a depleted offensive line and a good defense, or a Houston, or, again, the game against the Broncos where you won low scoring. This was a game you weren't going to be able to win without putting like 20-plus points on the board. And I just saw there was no way for New England to possibly do that. Again, like I said, with the Seattle being able to get home a little pressure and then able to, again, whether they were to bring a corner in on a blitz, whether it was Witherspoon, Nick Emanuori, they were able to do that as well. And, again, Will Campbell played one of the worst games I've ever seen from a player in the Super Bowl. He just got completely lit up. And this Patriots, I don't know, again, if they didn't play like these top-end defense in the regular season, but for somebody who watched Patriots games a lot as a fan of Drake May, the offensive line wasn't this glaring issue. I mean, they weren't a great unit, but they were a sufficient unit throughout the regular season. In the playoffs, like, Will Campbell just got completely lit up. And that was also a big problem, too. Like, they tried to help Will Campbell a little bit. You put a tight end, again, at the end of the offensive line to help him a little bit to block, or whether it's with a running back. But then you're also, like, taking away from your offense because you're making a pass catcher block now. Now you have an inability of people to get out in routes because, again, you're limiting the amount of people that can go out to catch passes. So, again, I just think Drake May and this offense was completely outmatched. Did Drake May play a great game? No. But again, also at the same time, like I said, I don't think he had the same style of weapons to really win this game. The offensive line was pretty bad. He's 23 years old. He did look a little bit overwhelmed. But then when you look at Sam Darnold and that offense as well, not only were they able to create turnovers, which the Patriots weren't. Like this Patriots defense did really play good, and this Patriots defense played good in the trenches as well. This wasn't a game where Seattle dominated the trenches on both sides. Like the Patriots were really dominating the trenches when it came to Seattle. Like they were constantly pressuring Sam Darnold. They were doing really well. I thought Christian Gonzalez was the best player in the entire game, which is pretty ironic. But the difference with Seattle compared to the Patriots, it really came down to Kenneth Walker, who was the Super Bowl MVP. Like he was a guy that was able to get things going for this offense, was able to create big plays. A lot of these big plays led to field goals, which came with Seattle's first, whatever it was, 12, 15 points, which really put that game out of reach because it looked like Patriots had no chance of scoring. And Kenneth Walker was the guy putting them in position. Now, Sam Darnold was, I believe, was a little bit less overwhelmed than Drake May. He was able to complete throws here and there, key throws. But again, he also had his misses as well. We talked about in the beginning of the game, Jackson in the jig, but I don't know if it was a 60, 70-yard touchdown. Sam Darnold was feeling pressure, but this guy was wide open with nobody there. He missed that touchdown. So again, and Jackson in the jig was hurt a little bit throughout this game as well. But when you look at Seattle, they were the more complete team. They were a team that I believe was able to win, again, on the backs of their defense in some games, on the backs of their offense in some games, where it looked like when the Patriots got to the playoffs, they were really riding this defense, and that was about it. So, again, Seattle wins. I think the journey of Sam Darnold is just going to be completely unique of its own in the history of sports. One of the best journeys we've ever seen. How many people have counted out this guy? And then again, like another narrative that people are saying, like the Seattle team was really loaded or whatever. They were great on both sides of the ball. Multiple people would have won Super Bowl or whatever, or 10 people would have won a Super Bowl in this offense. Completely not true. It's like absolutely ridiculous because, again, you could point to the top 10 quarterbacks. You could point to Mahomes or Josh Allen. How many people would have had the game that he had to get over the Rams in the Super Bowl run? I don't even know if Mahomes or Josh Allen would have done it in that moment. I mean, this guy had one of the best games, again, of all time in the playoffs in that game. He was absolutely flawless. So, again, I think a lot of people keep just continuing to hate on Sam Darnold, but it really seems like now every team that he leaves get worse, and every team that he joins that was worse, he makes better. So, again, I think the people have given up on Sam Darnold is over because I think Seattle is going to sign this guy long term. Like, again, I think he is signed long term, but they have options or whatever. Obviously, they're going to keep him long term. And then for the Patriots as well, like, I don't think the Patriots got necessarily like lucky. Anybody you talk to, there's going to be luck in a Super Bowl run, whether you win or lose Super Bowl. To get to a Super Bowl, there's going to be some luck factored in. But again, I thought the Patriots were really one of the better teams in the AFC. Like you could argue the Broncos, but everybody else you really can't argue. Like they were a good team, and again, they're young. I do expect them to be a team that's in the top half of cap space to add more in the offseason. And I do think with this quarterback, who we believe is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, that they're going to continue to contend. Now, are they going to get back to the Super Bowl? Who knows? Because like that's just like a generic statement, and like you could say that whether you're
and the dynasty talk with Seattle, like every time a team wins a Super Bowl, it's like, oh, is this the next dynasty? Like we were talking about that with the Eagles last year, and look what happened with the Eagles, and they might be losing some more pieces this offseason. So it goes both ways for both teams.
Talk like, oh, you may never make it back to Super Bowl. Look at these look at these players. Look at these quarterbacks that ever made it back to Super Bowl. You could say that about anybody. I think this team's going to be in contention for a while. I think they're going to be a playoff team for a while, and a team that could continue to give every year a run for its money because I do think they have the right coach and quarterback pairing. And Seattle, yeah, they're going to be a top contender next year. But again, who knows what next year's brings? The NFL was wide open this year. Kind of expected to be the same thing next year because we kind of got out of the Chiefs and we got out of the Eagles. Didn't look as good this year. So those two primarily teams that people thought were stacked or were playing with a generational quarterback, they're in different points now. So I do think the league's going to be wide open because of that. So again, I'm not willing to say dynasty talk. I'm not willing to say anybody's not going to be back there. Like just generic statements that I just want to throw out of the way. But again, those are my thoughts pretty much on everything. A lot of narratives.
Yeah, no, I agree, and like, do I think that the Patriots did benefit from a soft schedule during the year? Yeah, I mean they did beat up on some bad teams. I get that, but at the same time, like you said, I mean, the AFC wasn't really a powerhouse. It wasn't. And this could have been the year for teams like the Bills and the Ravens to go on a run because you didn't have Patrick Mahomes standing in your way. And the Ravens, they didn't even make the playoffs. Part of that had to do with Lamar Jackson being hurt this year. But, and then for the Bills, I mean, you had your shot. And you turned it over 5 times against the Broncos. And had you not have done that, maybe
Like
you would have been the team in the Super
the
Bowl this
fact that
year.
the Bills should have been there, like, come on, like it doesn't even make sense. Like they had their chance,
They did
they
have their
had one of their
chance.
best chances, and they played bad. Like why should have they been there? Like that doesn't even make sense.
I know.
And I
Well,
understand if again like you want to use hypotheticals or whatever too, but the Patriots did beat them too. So
yeah.
it's not even like
Yep.
they didn't beat them. Like they
And
beat the
that
Bills,
was
so like
and that
they were right on the same.
and that upset early in the year in Buffalo, that was kind of the beginning of, all right, maybe this Patriots team is going to be legit. This team is going to be better than we think, because going into the year, I mean, when we did our predictions way back when, I said, hey, this is going to be a team that's going to double their win total from the previous year because they won 4 games. So 8 games I had them around this year. I thought it was going to be kind of a little bit of a slow process for them, but they got the right head coach in. The quarterback looks like he's going to be good. I mean, the offensive line before this year was even worse. So, I mean, they still got to improve it, but, they're heading in the right direction, and they exceeded expectations and made it all the way to the Super Bowl. So, and now people are saying, like, oh, they're going to be a team that wins, 5, 6, 7 games next year. It's like, that shouldn't be the case. I mean, like, the Bills are going to be good next year. I expect that. I expect the Ravens to be good next year again with a healthy Lamar Jackson. Now we'll see with Jesse Minter as their head coach. Could they have this Mike McDonald jump where this team is, really good in the regular season? Could be. I feel like some people are really down on the Chiefs, and look, they need to, inject some more youth onto this team. But if Patrick Mahomes is healthy next year, I'm not going to completely count out the Chiefs. Now, am I still going to say, are they the team to beat in the AFC West? No, because the Broncos and the Chargers proved hey, they're not going anywhere. They're going to be a problem in this division for years to come. And had Bo Nixon not gotten hurt, yeah, Broncos probably are in the Super Bowl. But again, that's a hypothetical. So yeah, there are going to be teams that are going to be good next year, but I don't think we should completely dismiss the Patriots now because they lost to a better team, a team that was, the team that now is the Super Bowl champs, and they were a 14-win team. It's not like they went on this miracle run to the Super Bowl. They won 14 games this year, okay? And the two best teams in the NFC were the two teams in the NFC Championship game between them and the Rams, and they got the best of them. So I don't think people should just say, oh, because you lost to, the Seahawks, that just completely devoids you of, any credit of the year that you had because of the schedule. And yeah, look, their path to the Super Bowl with what happened with Bo Nix and obviously, the turnover machine that C.J. Stroud turned himself into, and how I know this hurts to say, but Justin Herbert and his lack of playoff success, I get all that, but you went up against some really good defenses. It's just then you went up against a team that takes advantage of turnovers, which is what the Seahawks did. You're going up against a quarterback that was perfect, did not turn the ball over at all postseason. Which how impressive is that? I just feel like that for Sam Darnold, for a guy that prior to this season and obviously what happened last year and the journey that he's been on, the fact that he was the quarterback that went throughout these entire playoffs without turning the ball over, I think should not go unnoticed. That is something very impressive that he did. And again, another component as to why they
Also,
won.
what's true with that, with Sam Darnold not turning the ball over, especially for that quarterback that again leads the league in turnovers and tends to take chances, and that's why I don't really even really I don't fault him as much for having the most turnovers as other people do, because again he plays kind of that game where he's consistently throwing downfield. It's not like this guy's thinking and dunking and has the most turnovers.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt him grow throughout the season this year too. When we looked at one of the early games against the Rams, I guess the game that they won in the second half in the fourth quarter, and he kind of played this game where he didn't turn the ball over and he won the game and did enough to win the game. And then very similar like that in the Super Bowl. I feel like that's where a player like him has grown. He realized that again, he can win this game and depend on other units of this team to win the game and not have to take these chances. And then again, to to throw as much as he did in the Rams game, like the NFC Championship game, and to not have a turnover
I know
is
he
impressive too.
had to match everything that Matthew Stafford did, and he did that and outplayed him, which was very impressive. And yeah,
Yeah,
he did grow. You know, like he had 7 picks against the Rams this year. You know, like, and in the NFC Championship game, didn't turn the ball over once. Didn't turn the ball over all playoffs.
yeah, we also like we talk about this too in this episode. Like I feel like the general problem with like NFL and people predicting the NFL, especially like this year, people think that like again, like you have these top three quarterbacks like Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar, and people just think that like the same thing is just going to happen over and over and over again. And somebody like Sam Darnold, they get burnt because again, Sam Darnold was this player for a lot of his career, and then also like even when he was good on the Vikings or whatever, and this year with Seattle, he turns the ball over. But like it doesn't mean that like this like blueprint of the NFL where like these top quarterbacks and this are these quarterbacks and like nothing's ever going to change and nobody's ever going to develop. Like again, that's why a lot of people got burnt on Sam Darnold. I feel like, and again, like you were talking about a couple of these other teams that I wanted to talk to. Again, you talked about whatever the Patriots, people thinking that they're going to be not a contender. I don't think so at all. Again, I'm super high on Drake May, and then you pair him with a really good coach like Mike Vrabel. And the other thing too, like when you're looking at the Patriots against Seattle, one of the biggest things too that I think like hurt them towards the very end. Like you could overachieve to a certain extent, but when you were building your team in the off season with like a certain type of trajectory and like you overcome that trajectory, there's like a certain point where I believe like again it's gonna like hit its limit. And the Patriots again, they weren't built to win a Super Bowl this year. We're like Seattle was kind of like a win now team. Like they made this move to sign Sam Darnold for this money, and they had the defensive pieces. And so I think that's like a big thing as well, where you're going to see this Patriots team continue to grow. And like I said, when you have those two elements on your team and the amount of cap space that they have, they're going to bring in their offense. This may be the worst offense Drake May plays against. Like plays with obviously like his rookie year was bad, was worse, but like again, he may play on better offenses throughout the rest of his career because now they're going to try to pair him up with certain people. Now they know that they have the quarterback to do it with. I think again, the disconnect with the Patriots is just like kind of where you put Drake May amongst the league and how much you believe in him, which is again is everybody disconnect with every type of team. Like how much you believe in a certain quarterback is going to really dictate how far you think they will go. Chiefs are kind of a weird situation though because you allude to the Chiefs. Like I feel like a lot when the Chiefs were like again, coming up in Super Bowls, whatever the case may be, a lot of people were talking about the other teams like the Chargers and the Broncos and saying like, oh, you know, they're screwed because they're in the Chiefs division. Now I kind of look at it in like a reverse effect. Now I'm like, oh, like maybe if the Chiefs rebuild and get certain pieces, they could be pretty good. But they have the Chargers and the Broncos in their division, who again are just like way better teams than without them. And then like again, you look at their quarterbacks, they have really good quarterbacks too. Again, obviously everybody puts Mahomes and the top caliber of the league, but those guys are also really good quarterbacks on complete teams. So that's going to be the biggest thing with the Chiefs too. Do they have enough cap space to again fill the holes and the needs they have? I would never count out Mahomes, obviously, but again, it's going to be tough for them to win that division with the two contenders they have. And like the Chargers, like they have the most cap space in the NFL, and they were a playoff team last year. So again, they have the opportunity to really, if they convince a lot of people to come to LA, they could really just have a monster of an offseason. I know they were favored in that division. Again, the Bills should be good, but again, I don't know if the Bills are ever just going to reach their ceiling because now you have again, I guess a new coach, but again, he was their offensive coordinator, but I don't know if the Bills are just ever going to reach their ceiling because it just seems like a team right now, and throughout the last couple of years, I would say where the team really isn't that great. You're putting a lot on Josh Allen's shoulders, and again, it's the same thing with Mahomes and a lot of these teams, but like, is that team ever going to hit that ceiling? I don't know. Every year you get a year deeper, and I feel the same way with the Ravens as well. Like I feel like kind of like if they were to hit the Super Bowl ceiling, part of me feels like it would have happened already, even though I do think it still could happen. Again, a lot of teams, in my opinion, are passing them, and they're again like we sort of build as a 6 seed, and we sort of Ravens missed the playoffs again. Like a lot had to do with Lamar's injury, but these players are getting older, and I don't know. They're getting like again, they're still in their prime, but they're getting older and older and older, and their window's shortening. So I don't know. I think you're going to see continuously on this trend more of like the league being wide open, more of these up and coming teams. Again, the Bears could be a team like that next year. Like
Yep.
just consistently teams coming again, like who maybe don't have the quarterbacks you think of right away when you think of the NFL. I kind of see those teams popping more.
Yeah, and like, and to bring up Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen again, like I think for both of them, their most recent playoff losses, it comes down to them also making mistakes. Like
I mean,
Lamar
Josh
the year
Allen.
before, like in the first half against the Bills, played so poor, played a much better second half, but had you not have turned the ball over like you did in the first half, could be having a different conversation. And then Josh Allen, like I expect Josh Allen to play a good game every single time because, in a lot of his playoff losses when they come against the Chiefs, it's not usually because of him. I mean, you go back to the 42-36 game, like Josh Allen played amazing, but this one against the Broncos, and you can talk about, the flag that wasn't called or the controversial play with the Broncos making a great play on that and ripping the ball away from Brandon Cooks. Like they wouldn't have been in that position had you not turned the ball over 5 times. I mean, one of them was James Cook, but Josh Allen had 4 turnovers. Like you cut that out of the game,
No,
you win
he
that
lost.
game. Yeah, he lost the game. I don't care what happened with the defense. I like it. It's on Josh
And
Allen.
the biggest thing with Josh Allen to me now too is like when you look at him in the beginning of his career and people were saying like the Chiefs got calls or whatever, you would point to like the 13 seconds thing that happened with them or whatever. You could point to and say, hey, Josh Allen played great and he just got unlucky in the playoffs. Now we're at this point in Josh Allen's career where it's just such a huge sample size. Eventually we got to turn to Josh Allen and say, hey, like this is just a trend now that this guy can't get over the hump. And like that's it. Like in the beginning you could say, hey, he got a little unlucky. Again, they were playing shootouts. He played great. Now it's like, come on, you've been in the league for 8+ years now. You've been to the playoffs all these times, and you can't figure it out. And then this previous playoff game was like by far the worst, in my opinion, that the Bills kind of left the playoffs because I think it was just completely on the shoulders of Josh Allen again. I thought again the play right before halftime was one of the worst plays I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
You
Yep.
could argue even without that one play, they might have won because that's 3 points on the board and an overtime game. But yeah, I think it completely falls on Josh Allen. Like a very, very winnable game, and he got 5 turnovers. Like he saved his worst game for the last game of the season.
Yep. Yeah. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So, I think that pretty much wraps up that. Any final remarks before we wrap up?
No, I was happy, get your thoughts on the Super Bowl, and I'm very excited about how the NFL landscape is going. I again, like a lot of people, like we talked about Super Bowl, weren't as excited again as the Super Bowl was coming up because they didn't have these like all-time great players. But again, for people like me and you who are like football heads that again love players, love certain teams, and just love like certain storylines, I think it's a breath of fresh air to again see this NFL landscape be more wide open than it's ever been over the last year. And I expect it to continue a little bit because, like I said, the top quarterbacks again are in different states of their career. I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, I second that with the parity. I even mentioned that yesterday. I think that is great. Because we see a lot of times like in sports. I mean, with basketball we had the Warriors, and obviously now we're dealing with it with baseball with the Dodgers. Like parity is important, because you're seeing new faces, you're seeing those storylines, we're seeing different things. It's not the same teams every year. Like it keeps you invested. Obviously, at the same time, I'd still like the game to be a good game. Like, again, that's a game that I'm not going to rank as one of the top Super Bowls I ever watched. But at the same time, like, it was kind of a mismatch, and it showed because of the strengths and weaknesses of both of the teams. And we'll see what happens with these two teams. I mean, both these teams are going to be good next year. They have their quarterbacks going forward. They have good defenses. They just got to continue to add. The Patriots, they got some things they got to address, whether it's with their playmakers, the offensive line. And for Seattle, hey, you're not gonna have the same exact team next year, so you're gonna have to replace some guys. But you got key pieces, both defensively and on the offensive side of the ball that you're gonna make sure that you keep around for a while. Obviously, Sam Darnold with how he played this year, and obviously JSN coming into his own now with the changes they made, letting go of some of the veteran guys, trading away some guys. at receiver, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who were there for a while. So, um, congrats to them for winning the Super Bowl. I mean, listen, we definitely didn't expect either of these teams to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. I mean, I didn't even have either of these teams making the playoffs this year. So that shows how much ball knowledge I have. So hopefully next year I fare better with that. But yeah, no, the season went very fast, and obviously it's all off season stuff now. It does, and it goes faster and faster as the years go on. But yeah, no, off season stuff obviously going to be a big topic of discussion. Obviously, hopped on your pod for some draft stuff, free agency and whatnot. That'll be covered on this channel. We'll have Dami on this channel as well. So I appreciate you coming on, Dami. If you want to plug in all your stuff like we do for each other, when it comes to our pods, you can do that as well before we officially wrap up.
Of course, yeah. So again, I'm Sloppy Saturdays on everything college football podcast. As the draft comes up, that's usually when Ken's on the most. So you guys could definitely see him over there. We may put out the same episodes for both of you guys again, as it kind of like correlates to both channels, college and NFL. We might put out the same draft episode for you guys on both channels. But yeah, that's my stuff, and I look forward to again hopping on again with you.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime. So that is pretty much it. As always, everybody make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video and to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcast, you can follow us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports. You'll find us there. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time.